Welcome to the David Carmina Show. And I am still in the office. That's right, guys. I am still in the office. And today we have a special show, a follow up to our Friday show. Um, on Friday, we talked about the debt ceiling, the X date, a clean bill to raise the debt ceiling. We talked about what was on the table. And guys, we talked about the fact that the X date was moved from the 1st of July. The 1st of June. I always get that date wrong, to the 5th of June. We had a robust discussion on what we thought it would take to get the deal done. And the fact that we really needed to get the deal done this weekend or maybe Tuesday at the latest, because we needed time to where we can get the bill to pass both the House and the Senate, and then have the president sign the bill before the deadline. And we talked about what would happen if we ever default. We talked about the millions of jobs, even if it's a short default, short period of time, couple of days a week, you're looking at 1 million jobs lost. We said that if it went on longer, possibly 7 million or more job loss, but for sure, we're going to have some type of recession. We had a good chance that we was going to lose our AAA rating. We talked about inflation skyrocketing, stock market crashing. We talked about the T-bonds, and if the T-bonds rise, then we have all of the other bonds rising, and how that will affect the everyday Americans, everyday people that wanted to buy a house or invest in their business or grow their business. The access to capital. We said access to capital, you can forget about it, because your access to capital it'll be pretty bad. And if you're a business leader and you want to grow your business, it wasn't looking good. It was not looking good, guys. It was not looking good. That was Friday. But I have some good news. I have some good news, well, potential good news, because you never know. You never know how these things will turn out until it actually passes the House, where the Republicans are in charge. Then it has to go to the Senate, where the Democrats are in charge. And then the president has to sign it. But at least we have some agreement. Something is on the table. Something is on the table that we can talk about. And one thing that you guys are going to be enjoying, I think, in this conversation is many of the things that we discussed on Friday is addressed. It got addressed in this bill. Potential. I don't want to jinx it. Got to knock on wood, because we got a long way to go. And our drop dead date is on the 5th. But we're going to talk about at least what's on the table. Now, this is breaking news, guys. This happened today. Well, last night. And over the day, more and more people have been discussing what it could potentially be in the bill. So here's what we know so far. We're gonna come back after the break. After I run the tape, we're gonna talk about each one of these provisions, at least what we know as of right now. But first, I got to salute to my number one supporter, my number one fan, Christopher Williams. Salute, brother. Thank you for dropping by on Sunday. Thank you, man. I appreciate you. I'm going to cover what's the downfall in the bill. We're going to cover that. We're going to cover who won what is the Democratic position, or how they potentially may have won or got some of their points. We're going to talk about the Republicans, and then we're going to, there is some common ground. There are some things that both parties wanted. One thing that we do know, though, is that both parties are going to have problems getting their members on board with this bill, because it is not a bill that is, at least what we know as of right now, it is not a bill that favors one party, that one party got everything. That's what we know. And Missy Michonne, thank you for showing up. Thank you for showing up. I know that you are in the lead mastermind. I know you drop by every now and then. I know your content of your channel is growing, and you have that controversial content. Well, we got some controversy tonight. Not quite what you normally deal with, but thank you for dropping by, and I appreciate you. So let's talk about this bill. Here is a tape. Here's a recording. Here's what's been presented so far by the Republicans and the Democrats, because everybody running to the podium, and they're suggesting that, we've come to an agreement, and here is the best case scenario for our side. So we're going to run it. We're going to come back, and then we're going to tackle each one of these provisions, potential provisions, one by one, and we're going to see possibly, because I want to make sure that we know that there is always going to be someone in each party that's going to probably try to stop the show. So there may be some last minute deals, some last minute things added, some things removed, definitely some things modified. Overall, though, we want to make sure that we get to this X date, we're able to do something to raise this ceiling. So let's see what we got so far.
After weeks of negotiations, the White House and Republican leadership have reached a tentative agreement to lift the nation's debt ceiling, hoping to avoid default by cutting a deal on key spending and budget questions.
We still have a lot of work to do, but I believe this is an agreement in principle that's worthy of the American people.
President Biden writing in a statement overnight, this agreement is good news for the American people because it prevents what could have been a catastrophic default. The thorniest issues tackled by the president and House Speaker in several phone calls Saturday night, like the stricter work requirements Republicans want for some federal aid programs, which Democrats oppose. The plan on the table, which would lock in a 2-year budget deal and a 2-year debt limit increase, according to sources briefed on the framework, does include some temporary adjustments to food assistance programs like SNAP. But there are no changes to Medicaid, a priority for the president. Non-defense spending will remain roughly flat with the current levels next year. And permitting reform for clean energy projects did make it into the bill, another sticking point in the marathon negotiations. But the framework has already been met with resistance by skeptical members in both parties. Conservatives have already expressed concern about the compromises made, vowing to slow the passage of the deal or potentially add amendments to make it more appealing to hardliners, according to a Republican source familiar with the talks, while Democrats are most worried about the tougher work requirements.
That would only serve to inflict pain on the poor and would effectively cut off health care for 1.7 million low-income people and cut off food stamps for 275,000 people.
Once lawmakers receive legislative text later today, they'll have 72 hours to review it, setting up a vote in the House as early as Wednesday, with the Senate to follow, leaving just a few days before Treasury Secretary Yellen's June 5th deadline.
I think this clarifies that our timeline is very tight.
So, Monica, tight timeline, and as you laid out, there are more steps to go before this agreement in principle becomes an actual agreement with the T's crossed and the I's.
Okay, so what we know is, let me get back to it. Here's what we know. We know that we have a deal on the table, and as I mentioned to you guys, there are people on both parties that want to kill it. We know that they know that the drop dead date is on the 6th or the 5th. We know that Yellen is running out of money. We talked about on Friday that roughly 130 billion, give or take, she has to spend. She has enough money for the first week. Second week, she's running out of money. They know that. That's what's on the table. That's what they're aware of. So at the last minute, like we said on Friday, at the last minute, they got together, both parties, even though the caucus, the House, and to be fair, the Senate, they went home for the weekend, but the negotiators were still there, and they was hammering out deals, and believe it or not, they got it done. Hey, congratulations. Congratulations. They got something an agreement in principle. So let's talk about what's in the agreement. Ms. Michonne says, hey, I'm going to have to talk about this. That's right. We should put pressure on both parties because the good faith and credit of the United States should not be questioned. We both agree that both parties agree that the U.S. should not default, and they've used this debt ceiling as a way to kind of, whichever party is in power, if it's a divided government, whoever had control of the Senate, most of the time, what they did was they used this debt ceiling, raising the debt ceiling, as a way to strong arm some concessions from the other party. And it worked both ways. It worked both ways. Both parties did it. No one's an angel in this. No one's an angel in this. Christopher says, the agreement, I wonder how it's going to benefit the American people. Well, we're going to talk about that right now. We're going to talk about what's in the bill. Now, one thing, Christopher, that you need to know is that this is before the Republicans and the Democrats in the House have gotten to it. I think in the Senate, I know that McConnell, he came out and he was like, hey, listen, McCarthy and President, you guys get together and get it done, because really the negotiating of this bill is between you guys. In the Senate, of course, the Democrats are in control, and I don't think that the Republicans are going to be put up that much of a fight in the Senate, because Mitch McConnell, who is the minority leader, is of the opinion that we need to get the deal done. So, hey, you got to give the man his flowers. So we need to see really what's in the deal. What's in the deal? What's in the deal? It's all about the details. I'm going to read right from the latest known, at least what's been reported as what's in the deal. We're going to have kind of a conversation, and some of this stuff that we're going to cover, we predicted. We really did. We kind of, on Friday, we thought about that they would need to do this. Now, the main thing on Friday, we said that they had two options. One option is that they could kick the can down the road to 2024 and make this part of the campaign for president. And we talked about the pros and cons of that. We said that, well, maybe it's finally time to deal with it. It's finally time to put to vote whether the American people, want to tackle this debt ceiling, want to tackle what is fair, what programs they need to support, what programs they need to not support, and put it right there. And you vote on it. If you want the Republican position on where we should be with the debt ceiling, you vote Republican. You want the Democrat position, you vote Democrat. We make it part of the campaign right up front. Not some of this false stuff that they put up there. to try to wedge. We have a legitimate philosophy as to what we should be paying for in America. Yeah, we all say that, we all say that we want to rein in spending. We want to get control of the government. We want to make sure that no one has a blank check. And that's what we say. But to do that, are we willing to cut out programs that benefits the at risk or the elderly? Yes, we want to shrink the government, but are we willing to give up Social Security? What about health care? Do we want to make cuts to that? How draconian are we looking to shrink that government and rein in spending? Is it something that we want to touch on? Defense. We talked about kicking the can down the road to 2024 and making that part of the debate. Now, we had a second option. The second option was, what happened here? The second option was, let me see what's going on here, guys. Hold on, guys. I was recording I was playing, so make sure that my sound quality was good. Miss Michonne, thank you for the $4.99 super stick, $5. No question, no comment, just love for the brother. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. We talked about your channel. I love the fact that you hit hot topics. Yeah, they're controversial. It's not this healthcare government stuff. It's that controversy, that juicy stuff. And you covered it. You're one of the best people covering it. I want to thank you for coming by the show. I know that this is not the content that you cover, but it's good to know that you are interested in what's going on with our government, how this debt ceiling affects us. So thank you for coming by. I appreciate you. Now, here is what we know that has been reported on the bill. Now, I talked to you guys about option one. We talked about it Friday, that we can kick the can down to 2024, make it part of the election. Option two that we talked about on Friday is that they can push it to 2025 and have it not be part of the election. Not make it a central feature of the presidential election in 2024. We said that was an option, and we said that is what the Democrats wanted to do. They wanted it to be pushed down to 2025, and whoever is president then have to deal with it. And God, that was a win for them. Guess what? Here's what we got. I'm going to read right from the hot notes. Right from my iPad, guys. Suspension of the 31.4 trillion debt ceiling. So they're going to suspend it to 2025. Okay? So it's not going to be it's not going to be a main feature as part of the presidential election. And that is a win for the Democrats. That's what they wanted. They're expected to boost the military spending to $885 billion. They want to boost it, which represents an 11% increase from the $800 billion that's allocated in the current budget. So that's another win, is that, as I mentioned to you guys on Friday, We did say that the military was off for both parties. The military was off the table. Now the Democrats sweeten it. They sweeten it a little bit. They put a little stevia on it. They sweeten it and say, "Hey, listen, we're not going to cut it, but guess what? We're going to give you an 11% raise. We're going to raise it 11%." So those were two key points that the Democrats wanted. Those are two wins. Let's see what the Republicans got out the deal. They have a cap on non-defense spending, discretionary spending, with cuts to 2022 levels, except for veterans health care, which will remain fully funded. Now that says a lot, guys. That says a lot. One, veterans health care is off the table. Veterans health care is off the table, but they're going to cap the non-defense discretionary spending to 2022 levels. What that means, guys, is that all of these popular programs that typically get a cost of living boost will be capped at 2022. So in a way, if the cost of living is still going up, but you're capped, that's a cut. That's a cut. They made it sound nice, but that's a cut. That's in the bill. Now maybe that is probably something that maybe is going to be modified. I would imagine that they're going to say, okay, well, maybe we will give it a 1% increase, because that's what they talked about the other time. Yes, that's what they talked about before, is that, okay, we're gonna cap it at 2022 spending, but then we're gonna give it a 1% increase. So I think that's probably one of the things that maybe won't end up that way. Here's another one, another provision that we talked about that may be included. We said they agreed to claw back the COVID relief funding. Remember we said that they on I think it was on Friday, or maybe it was that Wednesday show, we said that there's roughly about $60 billion in unspent COVID relief funding. About $60 billion. Well, they said that it's anywhere between $50 and $70 billion. Whatever that money is, they're gonna claw that bad boy back. I want it back. I want it back. Whatever you got, I want it back. So they clawing that money back. Now, that's that's between either 50 billion and 70 billion. And quite frankly, is that so bad? If we don't need the money and the money is out there, why can't we claw it back and use it for something else? So that's a win for the Republicans. Another win. There also is there's about 400 million in global, what's the fund here? CDC's Global Health Fund. About 400 million out there. They're going to claw that back too. So 50 to 70 billion, that's coming back, and they're going to try to get that 400 million back from the CDC's Global Health Fund. Another big win for the Republicans is that they're talking about canceling the 2023 request to increase the IRS. Now, the Inflation Reduction Act, they had it in there where they were going to increase the IRS, and they're going to go after these guys who are not paying mainly corporations who are not paying their full fair share. So they're going to claw that back. They're going to not increase the IRS. Now, they're not going to, one of the Republicans' position was that it was going to get rid of or extremely reduce the IRS. Well, they didn't get that. But they did get we're not going to increase the IRS. They did get that concession. Now, this next one was a hot topic. It was a hot, highly contested topic, which is the workforce requirement. The new work requirement for low-income people who receive food assistance under the SNAPS program. So that's the what's that? The WIC, all of the food assistance program. They said that now the program is extended to the age of 54. So there's a lot into this, but it basically what it says is that if you're an able-bodied person, you want to receive food assistance, then up to the age of 54, you got to find a job. You got to find a job, or at least try to find a job. Now, I feel kind of funny about that. I remember when I had a consulting company when I first got out of college. I got out of college and I had 11 years in the military. I was finishing my engineering degree. My first big job after graduation, I had my consulting company. My first big job was my company maintained a housing authority network. And so I had my guys out there and they go to work every day and we was looking professional and we maintained that network and we would see people. I mean, it's just one of the disheartening things. I'm walking into to check on the guys and this beautiful young lady walking out there and she was saying that, you know, I'm so happy I got some assistance for my family. I mean, she must have been maybe 24 or so. I don't know, maybe 28. Somewhere around in there, 24, 28, you know, well dressed. I can see it now. She had on shorts. It wasn't those flip flop things, but you know that it wasn't like the crotch thing, but the Crocs, something like a different between the Croc and a flip flop. It wasn't bad. She was clean, well kept. Hair was done, nails. I don't remember the nails being super long because I think I would remember that. But you know, nice nails. I remember she was good looking young lady. And she was walking out of there and she had one in a hand and one holding one by the arm. They was walking out and she said, you know, she was just super happy that she got this assistance to help her and her family eat. Now I'm saying yes. That's what the program is for. Is that so no one falls below that poverty level. But then I go down the street the next day and I see these able-bodied guys, people, mainly men, sitting out in front of the porch doing nothing and not looking for a job. Is that what the program is for? Is to subsidize someone income until they can find something better, or for someone to live off of generationally? Is it bad to say that, hey, listen, we want to give you this help so that you can find something better and you're not trying to live off? Is it unreasonable to say that if you are getting this help from the government that you look for a job? Is that unreasonable? You guys tell me. So when there is a provision saying that, hey, listen, if you want this assistance, try to find a job. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's you guys tell me. Let's see what we got here. Let's see. Christopher says, you have a great point, David. You have a point that on that. People going to abuse the system. Christopher thinks that that's a good point. The rule, Mr. Michon, the rule now is that if you have kids, you don't have to work. If you have kids, and that's what I was telling you about this beautiful. I mean, she was, man, I probably would have, hey, listen, if I wasn't, look, if I wasn't at work, if I would have, if she was like in the club, hey, it may have been a different conversation I had with her. Let's just say that. But if you are receiving governmental assistance, is that, I mean, I don't know how much they make, but let's say it's, I don't know. Let's say you get housing and then you get some food assistance, and let's say that's easy math, $2,000 a month. I don't know what it is, but let's say it's $2,000 a month. If you guys know exactly what it is, then hey, put it in the chat. But let's say it's $2,000 a month, it's $2,400 a year. Is that enough money to raise a family of 3, possibly 4? Because it was her, a little one, she had one, that's 3 right there. If she gets married, that's 4. $2,400. Is that enough to live off of? So, are we incentivizing people not working? Is that what we come to? Part of the American dream is to own your own. Have a piece of that apple. Have a bite of that apple. You have your own house, your own car. Nobody's knocking on your door. Your landlord is not knocking on the door. Where's the rent? $2,400. Is that enough to get that done? Christopher say that's even worse because some of the women got kids just to get the assistant. Are they playing that game? Are they playing the assistance game? And is having a kid just so you can get a little bit more on your government check? I don't know about that, guys. Is that true? Did we overcome all the things we overcome as a people so that we can get an extra $300 or $400, whatever that amount is, on a government check? Now, I don't have any kids. I don't know. And this is a political thing. We're talking about this. So I don't know what the assistance is, but I don't know. It says right here, yes, it's true. Wow. Ms. Michon says, then there's WIC and Medicaid. How long do we take care of these adults? Well, if we only giving them enough to be at the poverty level, unfortunately, we're going to always be taken care of. And that's the crux of the matter, is that we should be helping people to get past that level. And one way of doing it is maybe we should think about ways to raise or to incentivize people to get a job, to get trained. There's money out there to be retrained. There's money. There's opportunities out there. So, Republican position is that they put some requirements on the workforce, work requirements for low-income people. Like I said, it's receiving SNAP programs to extend the age to 54. Okay, another win from the Republican point of view is that the agreement on repayment of the student loans Okay, so they're going to do something with the student loans. I'm not going to even read everything on that because I think that the student loan is one of the ones that they are going to. There's going to be some back and forth on it. Another win was and we've seen this before. I've seen this one before. Is that the implementation of a budgeting mechanism known PAYGO, pay as you go. Okay, PAYGO, which requires new legislation, or executive orders be effective, have enough revenue to pay for it, with the exception of Medicare, Social Security, and other key programs. So if you implement something, you got to find the funds for it. So it should be budget neutral. We should be budget neutral. We should not have to go out. This concession is saying that basically we shouldn't have to raise taxes to pay for this new spending. You got to, if you have some new spending, you got to figure out a way to pay for it without raising taxes. It should be budget neutral. So if you're implementing a $50 billion program, you got to find $50 billion in cuts somewhere. Budget neutral. And then I'm not sure if this is a Democratic rule or a Republican rule, or if this is a win-win for both, because both of them were talking about the renewable energy. But I guess this was more of a Republican win. It says that agreement on new rules to make it easier for energy projects, including fossil fuel-based ones, to gain permit approval. So what they're saying is that the Democrats have come out and said, okay, well, we want to have this clean energy push. We want to have solar energy push. In the infrastructure reduction bill, that $1.78 trillion bill, they actually put in there incentives for solar energy production and other clean energy production. What this is saying is okay, we're going to give you that. We're going to concede that, but also now I want you to include and make it easier for fossil fuel programs to get easy permitting, so that those type of programs can be greenlit. That's what the Republicans want out the deal. So it's been a little bit of win-win for both. It's not for the Democrats. It's not a political football. It's not something that we're going to be talking about a lot in 2022. I'm sorry, 24. You know that the Republicans are going to bring it up. You know it. It's going to be out there, but it's not going to be up front and a main agenda. And then in 2025 is when we're going to deal with it again. That's what the Democrats want. We want to say, okay, we're going to push this bad boy. We're going to do something about raising the ceiling. In this case, they're going to suspend it, so they don't necessarily raise it. And we're gonna deal with it in 2025. Republicans say, hey, listen, guess what, guys? They were working hard on this workforce work requirement. That's what they was willing to fall on their sword on that one, I think. And they got a concession up to 54 years of age now. They didn't want to increase the IRS. Guess what? They are not. The IRS will not be increased as it was proposed in 2023. Another major one that says that, okay, if there's any changes, any new provisions, that were proposed or executive action, we got to find a way to pay for it inside of the budget, inside of the current budget. So that PAYGO is important, because if something happens, or if there's a provision that even in executive order that the president puts out there, you got to find a way to find the funding within the budget. So $50 billion program, you got to find $50 billion cuts in the government. And guess what? If it's not there, you can't do anything with it. So that can be one of those sneak provisions, that a sneak win. One of the things that was a win-win for both parties is that both parties battle over the moving of the IRS funding for mandatory spending and discretionary spending. It says that the IRS has earmarked $80 billion for hiring thousands of agents, and the extra tax revenue they generated is going to be offset by climate-friendly tax cuts. So that roughly that $80 billion that they were going to spend is going to be earmarked to climate-friendly tax cuts. And remember, here's the chess play. Here's the chess play, guys. They just said that they want to include fossil fuel projects in that. So what they basically did is that they got some money for fossil fuel projects. They took it from the IRS. That's what it looks like to me. That's what it looks like to me. So you tell me, is it a win-win? It seems like it's both parties kind of gave a little bit. It's definitely not a clean bill like President Biden wanted. Remember, President Biden got up there and said, no negotiating. I want a clean debt ceiling bill. Guess what? I'm willing to default. I want it to be clean. I want it to be clean. Republicans came up there and says, okay, well, we're going to. Oh, McCarthy came up there with a bill that was passed saying that basically everything that you've done in the last couple of years, we're going to roll back. So if you you got to give the man some balls. You got to look. You got to give it to him. He said that basically in this bill, which the Democrat says was a non-starter, is that, look, we rolling back everything. We rolling back everything. So each one of them gave a little bit. To be fair, they gave a little bit. They gave a little bit. They did. They did. Because I tell you, I'm laughing, but seriously, if we get past that drop dead date, that X date, all hell would have broken loose. We would have been flirting with default, and so that's something that we have never done in the history of the United States. We've never done it. And these guys, both parties was like, I don't know. There's the first time for everything. And unfortunately, we would have been the ones, the Black and brown community, the at-risk community, the military, the people living on substances, the Medicaid. I'm military, guys. Suppose that was my only source of income. I'm on Medicaid, Medicare. If I was. Luckily, I'm healthy. So I'm depending on that. I'm on fixed income. I'm depending on that. I'm in retirement. Now, a lot of people didn't realize that. A lot of these retirement is tied to their retirement is tied to the stock market. Stock market goes crazy, stock market crash, your retirement is gone. That's what these guys was playing with. Blue collar worker worked 20, 30 years of his life to provide for his mom, his daughter, his wife. Wife comes to the table and says, hey, listen, honey, you know, you don't have to go to work. Don't get up in the morning. Look, I know I put your shoes out in the bed. I know that your work shirt is here. The guy gets up and he don't, his back is hurting, his knee. He was working on a roof and fell down, knee hurt. He don't feel like going to work. He's put in 30 years. Hey, honey, don't get up. His wife tells him, you've worked long enough. We have a retirement. Maybe you can do some odd jobs. Maybe you can work part-time, but we set aside some money. Look at our portfolio. Look at it. Look at our portfolio. Look at this. We got all these funds. And then all of a sudden we default, stock market crash. And that nest egg that you had, that you saved up for 30 years, that nest egg is gone. Whoosh. That's not fair. That's not fair. These guys in Congress should not be playing with your nest egg. They should not be playing with your livelihood for these political games. So I'm glad that they got to the table. I'm glad that they've come to some type of an agreement. I'm glad that cooler heads prevail. Now what's next is going to go to the to both parties, is going to go to the House. And the House said that, whatever bill that one of the concessions that McCarthy gave when he was becoming the House Speaker, that he's going to have the body of the House, he's going to give 72 hours for them to review the bill. 72 hours. But for them to have a chance to review the bill on the floor before they vote on it. $72 hours. So what that means is that the earliest they can vote is Wednesday. The earliest they can vote is Wednesday. Then the Democrats have to vote in the Senate. Republicans pass something, Democrats pass something, it goes to, they get together in conference and decide, the differences, and then they send the bill up to the president to sign. So we are not out of the woods. We are not. And we have legislators that has said that I am going to try to slow this up because I don't like what's a provision that's in the bill, or possibly they're posturing and saying, hey, listen, I got to look strong in front of my constituents. I got to make sure that I have done everything that I could do to halt this liberal agenda or whatever agenda that they've advocating to halt for. That is not something that that should be even on the table. It really shouldn't be. It really shouldn't be. Now, if you got a legitimate complaint, a legitimate thing, then you have something that you want to do to make the bill better, then by for sure. For sure. Include something that can make the bill better, yeah. But if you're just posturing so that you can have a political run or I don't know. I don't know if that's something that you should gamble with your constituents' lifelong savings for. So I wanted to give you guys an idea of what's in the bill as of right now. We're going to know more Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, when the body of the House get a chance to look at it on both sides. Because guess what? The Democrats are not sold on every provision. The Republicans are not sold. We're probably going to have a bipartisan bill. We're going to probably have some Democrats voting for it and some Republicans voting against it. So it's going to be somewhere in the middle, most likely. There's wins and losses for everyone in this bill. So I think that I'm pleased that we at least have an agreement in principle. At least we have something that someone can vote on and modify and vote on and pass to the other party, the Senate. The Senate still needs time to do their thing. And then the president has to sign. All this got to get done before the 5th. Everything's got to get done before the 5th. So let's hope that we can. Let's hope that we can. Because the default is not pretty. No one wins in that. No one wins in that. Let's see what we got here. We have Christopher saying that politicians need to take it personal when it comes serious situations like you looking at it, because people work hard and spend on that income for their families. You're right. You're right, Christopher. This is nothing to play with. This is nothing to play with. Here you go, Miss Michonne. This is nothing to play with. We talked about people living on the edge of poverty. We talking about having that safety net in place so people don't fall below. Guess what? You take away a person's life savings because you made a posturing decision that backfired. You take away their life savings, and guess what's going to happen? We're going to have more people that are barely making it. People that are barely making it fall below the poverty level. No, that is nothing to play with. Let me go one up. Say, Christopher says, you're right, David. Processing in whole, another thing. You're right. You're right. We got to figure in time where you got to get that sausage making done. And then you got to get it to the president to sign. That sausage making take time. That sausage making take time. Now, suppose Yellen said, okay, well, I thought it was the 5th, but maybe it's the 7th, maybe it's the 8th. I don't want, suppose it is the 5th. Suppose it is the 5th. And we can't pay on the 6th. We go into a default one day. A default one day is a default. The first time that we've ever done it in the history of the United States. The most safe currency in the world has now defaulted. That's nothing to play with. That's nothing to play with. And guess what? As we get closer, stock market is going to start going crazy. The banks is going to tighten up. Now people who have projects or need money can't grow. You're causing unnecessary harm to the United States, to our economy. Is that worth trying to bring a spotlight on yourself and say, well, I opposed it. I fought with the vigor to make sure that this bill didn't pass, and no. Find something else. There'll be plenty other things for you to try to cut your teeth on and try to bring the spotlight onto yourself instead of risking the American people's life savings. It's not worth it. This is life. Now I know that you're in the bubble. You're in White House, not the White House, but you're in Congress. And you got that 180, what's that? 180,000 a year, whatever amount they make a year. You're going to get paid. Oh yeah, you're going to get paid. What about the guy who goes and works in the plant and make $50,000 a year, living paycheck to paycheck? And you putting his livelihood at risk because you want a posture. No. No, this is not the one. Find something else. Find something else. On a positive note now, guys, on a positive note, we do have an agreement in principle. We do. We have an agreement in principle. They're working on it now. They're going to probably have a draft done for people to start reading tomorrow. We're going to probably may get out of the House Wednesday, Thursday, get to the Senate, get out the Senate. President signs. We're good. This has been avoided until 2025. And then whoever is the president is their responsibility now. It's their responsibility now. It's not the way it should be. I still think that the flat tax will solve a lot of these problems. I still think that we need to figure out a way to not circumvent, but to figure out a way to make sure that we don't get to this place. We don't get here. We don't get here in 2025. Because if the Republicans, let's say they gain the presidency, okay, and then let's say the Democrats now has the House. Same thing all over again. Divided government. Same thing all over again. So we need a more permanent solution. We need to find a more permanent solution. Christopher says that's going to be campaign pitch in 2024. Right. Right. And I think that in 2024, maybe they shouldn't push the can down to 2025. Maybe they should do something suspended to 2024 so that it becomes a campaign. It becomes a tenet of the campaign. People are talking about it, and both candidates have to have a on the record solution of how they're not going to make sure that this don't happen again. They won't have the ability to ignore it or kick it down the road. That was an advantage of it not doing it to 2025, not extending it to 2025, actually extending it to suspending it to maybe 2024, and then now it's part of the campaign process. But they chose to, the Democrats, they wanted to make it a 2025 issue, and I can see pros and cons. I can see the pros and cons on that. And I think that's probably something that's going to happen. The 2025 is something that probably is going to happen. So as always, guys, we have a lot of serious things that's happening. I want to make sure that we covered what's happening, the breaking news. This happened today. I wanted to hop on and talk to you guys about why it's so important till we get this right. We have an agreement in principle. That's good. Everybody's kind of hyper alert about the deadline, the X date, the drop dead date. Many of the things that we talked about in Friday, they did. So we're on top of it here. Guys, we're on top of it here. We're on top of it. We probably could have helped write this bill. And as always, I want you to know how this is going to affect how these bills, this program is going to affect you on your day-to-day life. It's going to affect your ability to get a house or not. Do I have to rent 1 more year? Do I have to rent 2 more years? Well, can I afford the house? Should I buy now or should I buy when the rates go down? We talked about here that when the Fed come out next cycle, they're going to probably pause. That means that they're not going to raise the rates, the interest rates. So the mortgage rates is probably going to go down just a tad. If you're in a position where you can buy, then maybe it's something you can do, because we know that they're not going to start pivoting until the end of the very end of this year at the earliest, or next year. Can you hold out another year? These are things that affect you. And I'm happy that we have a chance to come on. We get to talk about it. Guys, if you have any questions about this, email me. If it's a topic that you want to discuss, email me, the David Carmina Show at gmail.com. We can talk about it. We can talk about it. I want to thank you guys for coming. Now, one thing that we talked about on Friday that I want to bring up is we had a very, very good time. We had people that came in and support. I want to thank you guys again. Our stream sponsor from the Friday show was, a brother, strong brother that came out and really support. He's not in the chat today. But Thane came out and did his thing. I want to thank Miss Mashawn, who gave a brother that nice super chat. I appreciate you. That, again, I appreciate you coming in, and I know that this is not your typical hot topic, but your $5 super chat, I really appreciate you. I appreciate my number one contributor, my number one supporter, my number one guy, Christopher Williams, always supporting, always the first one in the chat. Thank you. I appreciate you. You guys don't know how much I appreciate you guys coming by. It's Sunday. It's 11:30, and you guys come by to show support to a brother. Thank you. Please like, and if this is content that you like, please click the like button and follow. Leave a comment. I'm happy to cover everything. And as always, I want to salute and stay grinding. I'll see you on Monday.